Got a jumping spider? Not sure how to feed it? Then stay tuned because this is the video for you. Hey everyone, welcome back to Spooderpods. I'm David and today we're discussing how to feed your jumping spider. Now if you're looking for what to feed your jumping spider, I have another video on that which I'll leave a card for now. But as a quick rule, you want to be feeding prey that's roughly 2/3 their size. So that means small, very small prey for little ones, all the way up to slightly larger mealworms, crickets, etc. when your jumping spider gets to adulthood. But again, that video covers all those topics. In this video, we're talking about how to feed your jumping spider, all the different ways you can encourage your jumping spider to eat, and maybe give it some enrichment and simulate how it would act in the wild. Now, as the usual disclaimers, make sure you're not feeding your jumping spider when they're in pre-molt or about to molt, because that could potentially be dangerous or a little bit of a problem for them. And also give them a little bit of time after they've molted to give their fangs some time to harden so they can get into their prey. Also, keep in mind that jumping spiders can be quite fussy, especially older males with their feeding, so you may need to try different sorts of insects, give them a variety, and maybe try feeding at different times. So let's start with one of the most common ways that people will feed jumping spiders or other insects, and that is using tongs. You just get a pair of plastic tongs or metal tongs, whatever sort of length, preferably a little bit longer, and then you will capture the prey and then you will wiggle it in front of your jumping spider until they take it. This is probably one of the most common ways, as I said, because it's easy. You know, you provide it. If they don't take it, you can just take it away, or I'll talk about later what else you can do with that prey if they don't want it. What's really important is if you are using tongs, to give your jumping spider a bit of distance. Only provide it when they're in an area where they're actually going to take it. For example, when they're in their web, you don't want to be trying to feed them then. When they're out and about exploring, that's a great time, or on their branches, generally interacting with their environment. And it's very important to simulate some movement with that prey, even if it's still alive or even if you killed it in advance, because that's how you're going to stimulate the response from your jumping spider to actually jump onto it and attack it. If you keep it dead still, there's a good chance that they're not going to bother, so make sure you wiggle it a bit and actually keep it in their eye line rather than right in front of it. Another way people will try and encourage their jumping spiders to eat is by gently poking one of their front legs, and I wouldn't recommend poking them right in the face because that's probably going to make them back off, but just letting them sort of like touch it, taste it a little bit, and then maybe they'll take it. Again, remember, this should be a voluntary activity, so if they don't want it, just give up and try again later. The next method that many people use is feeding them naturally, and that means putting their prey in the enclosure and then letting the jumping spider hunt them for itself. Now, there is a small danger with this, in that if you've got burrowing prey like a mealworm, they're going to go into that soil, you never see them again. So you kind of want to be commonsensical with using this approach. If your enclosure is set up in quite a, I don't know, open and easy way for jumping spiders to navigate, then there's nothing wrong with trying to feed them naturally, and it is enriching for them and fun for them to try and find their own food and hunt just like they would in the wild. Just again, do be careful, and if they don't eat it after a while, remove it and then try again another time. This next method's one we found probably the most successful with feeding our jumping spider, especially Tank, who's now an adult male, and he's quite fussy because they can be like that, and that is using a feeding bowl. A feeding bowl is a really useful tool, especially if you put it nice and high up in the enclosure. So what you can do is you can try and tong feed, you can even try natural feed for a while. If there's not much interest, you can just pre-kill the prey and stick it in the bowl and leave it there for a while. That way, he has the choice when, or she, if your spider's a she, they have the choice when they want to go over there and eat it, and you know it's not going to escape or burrow or anything like that. These feeding bowls are really useful, and also because they're nice and high up, it tends to encourage jumping spiders to try and eat from them, rather than when they have to go all the way to the ground, they may not want to, they may feel a bit fearful. So I would highly recommend a feeding bowl, even if you don't intend to use it all the time, because it can be just another bit of enrichment for your spider to crawl over. Similarly to the last point, that is pre-killing prey and providing in the habitat. So all you do here is you'd pre-kill your mealworm or large cricket or whatever, and you just pop it somewhere in the habitat. It could be, for example, in the bowl if you wanted to, if you're using that, or elsewhere like on a platform, on a branch. Again, because this is a nice halfway house between natural and not natural. And while the prey probably isn't moving, hopefully it will still be twitching, so that will stimulate the feeding response. But again, it's a nice easy way of just leaving it in there and not having to sort of stand over your spider with tongs. Again, don't leave it in there. If it's not being eaten, take it out, otherwise you don't want it going rotten or mouldy. It's a lovely way of feeding, and it's a lovely way if you have a natural setup and you want your spiders to try and find their own prey as a form of enrichment. Now, just to summarise, Whatever method you choose is completely fine. All of these methods are employed by various people, you know, whether you want a tong feed, whether you want to pop it in a bowl, whether you want to pre-kill it, have your spider hunt for it naturally, it's all completely fine, it's entirely up to you. Just do remember, avoid that molt and pre-molt time, don't poke it right in the spider's face, don't pop it in their web, and don't leave the food in there as well. And also, if they are being fussy, it's okay, they can go a long while without feeding, just take it out and try again later, and hopefully you'll have lots of success. Don't forget, I have lots more jumping spider and invert content on my channel. There's lots to explore and learn about. I plan to do loads more in the future, but I'm holding back on a little bit more jumping spider content until we have a kind of new arrival, because I want to film all my own footage, because I feel first-hand footage is much more useful to anyone watching rather than like borrowing or nicking generic footage from other people. So do stay tuned, do subscribe, like and comment, because it does help the channel, and I want to keep making content for you. So guys, that brings me to the end of the video. Hope you found it useful and it was entertaining and educational. If you have any comments, I'd love to hear from you. But in the meantime, from me and Tank and Ember, who is sitting behind me, take care and see you later.